Welcome to Your Number Man, where we share financial strategies, business insights, and inspiring stories to help you navigate a successful business. I am your host, Johan, and my goal is to help you achieve a bigger life in business. Here I am again on my lonesome self, and I'm doing a bit of a solo episode for a change. And today we're going to talk about capital expenditure. All right, now, what is capital expenditure? Well, you're going to hear me a lot referring to the word CAPEX, which is just a shorter version of capital expenditure. So CAPEX are the funds used by a company to acquire, upgrade, and maintain physical assets such as equipment, machinery, and property. CAPEX is essential for a company's growth and long-term health, but it involves careful consideration of various aspects, including your cost-benefit analysis, analyzing your risk, your debt management, cash flows, and all your payback times as well. Another way to look at it is that CAPEX should be seen as part of your budgeting process, but it is beyond your day-to-day profit and loss. And I'm going to get to it a little bit later, how it fits into your profit and loss. But it needs to marry up with the business vision and strategy to decide how much money will have to be invested in working assets. You have to work out how you're going to acquire it, how you will fund it, and how will that money that's now invested in fixed assets will yield a return for your company. So in short, that's basically a capital expenditure. So why is CAPEX so important? So it can increase your profitability, it can deliver better products, it adds more value, it builds a stronger team, and it focuses on your long-term vision. So the right CAPEX strategy can help you to achieve a competitive advantage and prepare your business to thrive in a dynamic marketplace. Last week we had Natalie and Trevor from Coltech on the show. That was an excellent show. They were great. Natalie explained how she is so passionate about automation and also, in the same breath, passionate about a team, getting the best out of a team. So it's almost like that synergy between what areas are you going to automate in your business and what areas are you going to use your skilled team for them to move from the hands-on manufacturing to rather drive innovation and new product development. And then the labor gap as such is then filled with automation and robotics, which will then lead to a decreased direct cost, as in wages, and a higher gross profit. By now, you all know how I'm always banging on about gross profit, gross profit, gross profit. It's the engine room of your business. That's the real measure of your business, specifically in manufacturing and process-orientated businesses. I always say your cash is king, but your GP is your queen. So if you can get your automation in your business to really drive that GP margin as well, that's excellent. That is the main outcome for any capital expenditure. So other considerations in terms of why is CAPEX also so important. You gain confidence in your market share, it strengthens your market position and ensure your business remains competitive. So obviously it helps you to stay on the forefront of technology. You specialize in your vision alignment, so you focus on refining your products and staying true to your vision. Your strategic alignment is basically to ensure complete confidence in your business strategy. You can define your long-term goals. You identify key indicators for progress and align your efforts with your strategic plan. So it's all to do with strategy, alignment, the best out of your products to deliver and create value for your customers. Isn't that what business really is about? Creating value for customers, really focusing on their needs, making them a better service experience for your customers, service and product experience for your customers. So when is it the best time to consider CAPEX? So in a business, there's several pivotal moments. Okay, now it's time for a great expanse in your capital, in your plant and equipment, for instance. So major events like acquisition or a significant new investment can create a perfect opportunity to review your CAPEX strategy. So you can expand into a global market, but it will require you to scale your operations and to meet your increased demands. And that is when you actually relook at your team. What part of your team can actually be fulfilled by automation and better equipment? So when you reach the point where your business is ready to move into a new dimension, it's essential to review and redesign your business model to support this growth. Now, I did speak about scaling and business modeling as well in this series. And you will remember where I talk about growth and scaling actually go hand in hand. But scaling is make sure it's sustainable. Make sure that you're really getting that extra value that you put into your company is going to have a greater return as the company grow. And that's basically what scaling is. Some key indicators as well to decide when is it ready to consider capital expenditure is the readiness of your team. Is your team prepared and capable of handling the demands of a larger operation? Your systems preparedness, okay? Are your systems and processes robust and scalable? Available funding. So obviously you either got to have the money in your bank or you got to have investors lining up to help you and help you fund this, or you got to be able to get finance to buy new equipment. So it depends on what is your possibility of getting available funding. Now, remember I talked about the profit and loss. How does CAPEX actually fit into your profit and loss? Now, just to rephrase quickly, in one of my first episodes, I think it was the second one where I talked about the profit and loss. Your profit and loss is everything to do with your day-to-day business income and business expenses. So it's obviously your sales, your services income, your other income where you might get income from rent or interest as well. And then your direct cost, what is your staff costing you? What is your products costing you? And then you get your gross profit part of your profit and loss as well. And then your expenses, like you got to pay your administrative team, you got to pay your management, you got to pay your rent, your electricity. So that comes in your profit and loss. And then also in your profit and loss is something called depreciation. So all your assets depreciate every year. And that is not a cash expense because you've already paid for it, but it goes in your profit and loss. That's why you would hear a lot of people, when they talk about their financials, they talk about EBITDA. Now, EBITDA stands for your earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. So it means like you look at your business as a whole, but you don't really basically take your interest expense into consideration. Also don't take your depreciation into consideration because it's not really something that influences your cash. So capital expenditure will not affect your profit and loss. If you buy a tractor for 100,000, that will go on your balance sheet. So it doesn't go as an expense on your profit and loss. It goes on your balance sheet. But in the depreciation, every year that tractor depreciates, let's say by $10,000 a year, that expense will go in your profit and loss as well. Hence, what I explained by EBITDA will show what was your profit before depreciation, what is your profit now after depreciation for that matter. That's something just of a side note to keep that in mind. But assets will influence your cash flow. So it means if you're going to take that 100,000, you're going to buy that tractor, you take that 100,000 straight out of your bank, the profit and loss won't show, okay, there was 100,000 expense, but your cash flow sheet will show, 100,000 went out of my bank. Where is it? Okay, no, it's on my balance sheet. Cool. But you got to make sure, obviously, and we're going to get to it, make sure that you get that return on investment from that new tractor that you bought, that extra 100,000. You want to see a specific return on investment. Now, let's talk a little bit about debt. So you got two choices of buying an asset. You can either fund it yourself, so it comes from your bank, or there's profit from previous years, or you go to either investors or bank, but probably 90% of people would basically just go to the bank. And that obviously we call debt. So there's good debt and there's bad debt. So good debt is an investment that generates income or value over time. So you got to justify the cost of borrowing. For example, a loan taken to build a new factory that will significantly increase production capacity and revenue is considered a good debt. On the other hand, bad debt does not create sufficient value to justify investment. So for instance, you're borrowing to purchase a luxury office furnishings that do not enhance productivity or profitability. That's an example of bad debt. So companies should focus on leveraging good debt that aligns with their strategic goals, that has a clear path to return on investment. That sounds like a mouthful. Now, I'm just going to wind it back a little bit and just give you a bit of a simple exercise here. I don't know how many of you have heard about the math hack, the rule of 72. So that's probably an easy. If you sit in a board meeting and your boss says, all right, we want to buy a tractor of 100,000 and our return on investment is 24%. How long is it going to take to pay off that tractor? That is where the 72 rule comes in. Now, let me explain that to you. So basically, you want to know what rate of return do you need to pay off that asset in 3 years' time. So you take your 72 and then you divide it over 3, and that comes to 24. So if you want to double your money in 3 years, you divide your 72 over 3. So it means you have to make sure that everything that you use your assets to drive your return on investment has to have a return on investment over 24% if your strategy is to pay your assets off in 3 years, technically double your money. Let's do a quick exercise. Let's grab out your calculator, perhaps just on your phone. Now, you worked out that you will get an 18% return on investment from buying a machine. All right. Now, you got your calculator out. So punch in 72 over 18. That equals 4. So it means you're going to need 4 years to pay off an asset if that return is 18%. So I'll prove it to you now. Let's say, for instance, you want to buy a piece of robotics or a big 3D printer and it's going to cost you $50,000. Your return on investment is 18%. Now, we said we're going to pay it off over 4 years. So you take your $50,000, that's in year 0 basically, put 18% on that. At the end of year 1, you got $59,000. All right? End of year 2, you got $69,500. End of year 3, you got $82,000. And end of year 4, you got $96,000. Let's say it's almost $100,000. That means you've doubled it in 4 years. You can pay that off in 4 years if your return of investment is 18% or more, for that matter. Now, return on investment can mean a lot of things as well. Overall in a company, at the end of the year, you look at your financials, you say, all right, I've got $1 million as equity in my balance sheet, and I've made 200,000 profit. That means my return on investment on my company is 20%. Okay, that's great. But you can also work it out in specifically for a project or a piece of equipment, for that matter. So cost-benefit analysis, you look at your significant costs. By acquiring a new equipment for upgrading facilities, companies can improve their efficiencies, reduce operational costs, and enhance your productivity. Now, let's use my good friends and clients Caltech again, because that's fresh in your mind. And if you haven't listened to that podcast, go and listen to it. It was last week. Let's say they want to buy a machine of 100,000. And obviously, this is just numbers I'm pulling out of my head. So it's not based on real figures. But let's say, for instance, you're sitting with a direct payroll expense of 500,000 a year. So you're buying a machine of 100,000 with the idea to save your money, and you can bring your direct cost down from $500,000 to 480,000. Okay? So it means you have saved yourself 20,000 by buying a machine of 100,000. That gives you 20,000 over 100,000. That's a return on investment of 20%. So if a manufacturing company investing in an automated machinery, you may see a substantial reduction in your labor costs and increase in production output. So additionally, modern equipment can lead to energy savings and lower maintenance costs. So not only labor, you're probably going to get a better result, a better product. There's less quality management that you're going to do as well. So a lot of stuff can actually be added on top of your real benefit that you get as well. Now, it is quite a big topic, and I think at some stage, perhaps in season 3, I might have an episode really focusing on the cost-benefit analysis. Capital expenditure can drive growth, but it does come with risk. The most prominent risk is the potential of overestimating the benefits or underestimating the cost, and it will lead to financial strain. Economic downturns, for instance, technical obsolescence, or changes in the market conditions can also have a big influence on that as well. So market conditions can have a big impact on return on investment as well. CAPEX considerations will definitely have a substantial impact on your company's cash flow. Large capital expenditures require significant upfront cash outlays, which can strain cash reserves. So to manage this, companies need to ensure that they have adequate cash flow to cover ongoing operations while financing the CAPEX projects. So obviously, again, this might involve careful planning and budgeting, as well as exploring financial options such as loans, leases, or equity financing. And you've got to maintain a balance between CAPEX, investment, and operational liquidity. It's quite crucial for your financial stability, and make sure it's in line with your financial strategy. So let's talk a little bit about debt financing. If you're financing your debt or your assets, you can either, like a lot of people know, if you're going to buy a car, you don't have to go and mortgage your house. The car itself is the asset. So that asset is also the collateral over it, or you get unsecured funding. So for instance, companies that buy tractors, for instance, the directors doesn't have to sign off. The tractor itself would be the security of the asset. But there's a lot of other assets that the bank said, no, well, this is a little bit too fluffy. We're not really sure about the return. We're not really sure about the value of this asset, what it's going to be in 2 or 3 years. Then they will require more substantial security for it. And it depends on sometimes how the company looks or how the company performed over the last 3 or 4 years and what is the potential for growth of this company. Another concept that we have to understand, and I don't have a lot of time to explain it here, is financial leverage. It is a bit of a double-edged sword. It's a great, powerful tool in the world of finance. When it's used effectively, it can really amplify returns on investment, but it can really magnify your losses as well. So, in short, financial leverage refers to the use of borrowed funds, debt for that matter, for your acquisitions of your assets or investment with the expectation that the income or capital gains from the investment will exceed the cost of borrowing. All right. So it allows businesses or investors to increase their purchasing power, thereby potentially enhancing returns on equity. It's allowing for businesses and investors to achieve a higher profit with less initial capital. There's tax advantages as well. Obviously, interest payments, you can subtract that from your income. So eventually it's going to decrease your tax that you pay. And it enhance your growth opportunities. So by using debt to finance expansion, companies can take advantage of growth opportunities that might otherwise be out of reach. So this can lead to increased market share, revenue, and profitability. Now, the risk of financial leverage, like I said before, it magnifies your losses. So it can be a monumental problem as well. There's increased financial risk, meaning it's very vulnerable to economic downturns. Now, let's say, for instance, a few years ago during COVID, 2020, 2021, and even 2022 in some of the states like Victoria, people were locked down, shut into their houses. They can't go out. They can't go for a nice meal. But let's say you had a big restaurant in a Melbourne CBD and you wanted to expand. And you actually put a whole new kitchen in this restaurant. And you were hoping that there's going to be a good economic boom and turnout in the years of 2020, 21, and 22. And all of a sudden, COVID hit, and that threw a big span in the works. So obviously, because of this economic downturn, it could be quite negative for the business. Now, debt obligations, failure to meet these obligations can result in legal consequences, loss of assets, loss of control over the business, and ultimately, some business can actually get wound up or turn into receivership or classified bankrupt for that matter if you're not planning your financials or manage your risk and do your research as well. So for businesses, the strategic use of financial leverage can be a key factor in achieving growth and your competitors. But like I said, it requires careful management and understanding of all the risk involved. Investors, you should consider the company's ability to service your debt. What is your cash flow forecast going to look like in the next, 3 to 4 years? Would you be able to service that payments back to the bank as well? What's your overall financial health and the broader economic environment before you're making decisions? So financial leverage, it's a potent financial tool that can drive significant growth and profitability when used wisely. But keep in mind, is not without risk. You want to make sure it's good debt and not bad debt. Okay, like any powerful tool, leverage can lead to great success or, and I know I'm sounding like a broken record again, or catastrophic failure. It all depends how you wield it. In conclusion, your capital expenditures are vital aspects of your company's growth strategy. By understanding the cost benefits, you're assessing your risk, You're distinguishing between your good and your bad debt. You're managing your cash flow effectively and analyzing your payback time. Businesses can make very good informed capital expenditure decisions, and that drives long-term success. Investing in your CAPEX is a balancing act of seizing your growth opportunities while mitigating risk and ensuring financial stability. So by carefully planning and executing CAPEX projects, company can build a strong foundation for future success. And that is basically what I want to end off is capital expenditure, debt. It's sometimes thrown into the same bucket, and some people, stay away from expanding, stay away from debts. But wisely research, it can yield very good results for your company. And like I said, a very strong foundation for future success. Thanks for listening today about me rambling on about capital expenditure and all the different nuances involved. I really appreciate it. Please hit me up on socials if you need a little bit more explanation, a few models that you want to work through. I'm happy to get in touch with you. All right, that's me, Johan Zanik, signing off today as your number man. Thanks for listening.